Good morning, well, afternoon, but we're here. We're at the farm, we're working on a planter. So I had a meeting this morning, town up north of us a little ways, about Ag Explore, some of the foliar products that I'm using, trying to really build out my plan and figure out how exactly we're gonna tackle our in-season fertility and just kind of, I've been very successful growing corn in the last 3 years. I've had 3 years in a row with a NCGA corn growers yield entry above 280 bushel the acre. That's awesome. I'm really proud of that. What do I got to do to get it to 300? What do I have to do to get it to 320? So that's what I'm kind of working with them guys on, trying to build that out and you know, not just on my top end acres, but what can I do on the rest of the acres to help bring everything up. So that was good. We're back. We're going to be working on the planter here this afternoon. I have spent the last half hour or so washing meters, a couple that I had off and ready to go here. So they are drying on the table. We're going to let them dry for a little bit. I'm going to pull some more gauge wheels openers to get everything adjusted. Work on this. Basically the same thing I was doing yesterday. You guys don't need to watch that, do you? So while we're waiting on some stuff to dry out, we're going to talk about this planter a little bit more. Why did we, here at Border View Farms, decide to go from a 16-row 1770 NT 2013 model that was a good planter, non-high speed, max merge XP row units. We appear to have an oil leak because the bucket is in the wrong spot. Anyway, why did we go from that planter to this? And let me just explain the upgrade here, right? So not only is this 24 rows instead of 16, so we're 50% wider, went from 40 feet to 60 feet wide. It is also an ExactEmerge planter. ExactEmerge is the high-speed meters, the brush belt delivery system, high-precision planter that we can plant up to 10 miles an hour. If we can pull it. I don't know that one, we can pull it that fast, two, that I really want to go that fast. But either way, we'll be able to go more than 5 miles an hour, which was the speed limit with the 1770 NT. Like, that's it. And so, in theory, this planter will be 3 times faster than our 16-row 1770 was. And with that planter, I could have planted all of our corn in 8 days. Why do I need to be able to do it in 3? That's a great question. I'm going to be walking laps here for a minute while we're talking to you guys. This is going to be a little bit different. You're going to see a lot of this. Look at me. I'll try and put the planter in the background. But anyway, so why do we need to be able to go faster? Well, one, our window to plant is shorter and shorter all the time, it seems like. 2019, case in point, where we only planted for 3 days the entire year, and they were all in June. But what our issue specific to our farm is going to be over the next 5 to 10 to maybe 15 years is going to be a labor shortage issue, right? I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to come back here and farm with my dad and my uncle who had an established operation, and we've kind of grown stuff a little bit because I've been able to be here and help keep things moving. But I'm it. I don't have brothers in the operation. My sisters are not involved. My Uncle Phil, who is just as much a part of this as anybody else, doesn't have any kids. And so that's it, right? Which is kind of good, kind of bad. It's good for me because I'm it. I don't have to fight with other people and trying to make decisions and stuff, and I get to kind of be that next generation. The problem is it creates a labor gap until my boys, if they choose to farm, are old enough to actually contribute. And we're 10 years away from that being, you know, any contribution, 15 to 20 years away from them being legit full-time employees or owners or contributors. And so being able to get things done faster, more efficiently, allows me to do more things. And while I said that I could plant all of our corn in 8 days with that other planter, I was putting long days in, right? There was a lot of 18-hour days consecutively when things were going well. This planter, in theory, allows me to go home, sleep a little bit more, see my family a little bit more. In reality, it's going to allow me to jump in the field cultivator and keep that machine moving, jump in the sprayer and keep that moving so it's not all on Dad to do it, and help me get more stuff done. So that was a big reason why I wanted to push. I also believe that these meters are more accurate and will do a better job than our old planter was. The reason we went to 24 instead of 16, a big part of that was just that time factor. There's another factor here. Do you guys remember that little pinch row compaction trial that I did in my agronomic trials, my plot results stuff last year? You can find this at excelseeds.com. Click on the plot results 2022 agronomic trials. Anyway, one of the things that I had done was harvest rows 1 and 16, the outside rows of the planter, and then kind of work our way in. And what we had found is, you get these rows by the tractor tires that are really way off on the yield. Now, this was with the 8RX planting in 22. I did this the year before in 21. We can pull that up real quick with the dual tire tractor, and the pinch row 7 and 10 there was much worse than even the other ones. Right. So in this case, 7 and 10, that's 1/8 of our acres. It's 2 out of 16. Now that's 1/12 of our acres. It's 2 out of 24. Right? And we eliminated the pinch row, that row 7 and 10, we fixed it with the tractor, but we can't get rid of this 7 and 10, the one just outside of those tire tracks. We're going to have to go across the fields no matter what. But if I can make that, instead of 1/8 of our acres, 1/12 of our acres, there's a yield advantage there. That's a big advantage to go into a 24-row planter. Now, while we are on the planter size discussion, I will throw this out there because I've gotten this comment lots and lots since I showed you guys my wife's birthday present here. 24 divided by 2 is indeed 12. But guess what 24 divided by 3 equals? 8. So as somebody commented on, was it yesterday's video or the day before, where they said that 24 divided by 2 equals 12 something, C12F or something, the new 12-row folding cornhead model. You're right. It also, 24 divided by 3 equals 608C, which is the cornhead that we currently have and will continue to run. We have no plans of upgrading cornhead to a 12-row. That said, if I had one to demo, I would try it. I have no desire to buy a 12-row cornhead because we cannot keep the corn away from an 8-row. It isn't going to help me to have a 12-row. Now, let's talk specifically about these the row units from the seeding aspect and why it's an advantage. So, obviously, we're central fill, just like the old planter. We're going to put all our seed in there. It's going to blow it to the rows. We don't have to worry about handling bags. Clean out is so simple and easy on this, just like the old planter. There's not really much different there, but the actual meter itself is different. And so, we'll pull this off, and I will open it up. Look at that. And we've got this different style of meter. The bowl is over here. This fits inside there. And, it fits in here. So think of it like this. The seed gets blown through that tube into this hopper. It comes down out right here. You've got this pool of seed in the bottom. This bowl is on there, and it's turning, right? It's got all these little holes and spaces in the bottom. We are pulling a vacuum through this tube, through here, which creates a vacuum inside of this seal. See this seal goes all the way around here. That vacuum sucks air through these holes. You get a seed stuck to them. They rotate up around here. They go past this little fingers in this brush. That is the double eliminator that essentially knocks any extra seeds off. So there's only one seed on every single hole. And then as it gets to the top here, it's going to pass this little seal, right? That's right there, actually. It may kick it off before that. Anyway, it cuts the vacuum off. This brush right here is going to grab that seed. It's going to get stuck in there. This brush is turning, and then it's going to controlled drop that seed all the way down to the bottom into our seed trench right down there somewhere. It's too dark, you can't see it. But anyway, it controls the seed all the way to the ground so you don't have that rolling, bouncing seed tube where spacing and accuracy of placement can get affected. That's the advantage of this planter. That's what allows the 10 miles per hour is basically this belt right here that controls the drop from the meter to the ground. Now that is not the only upgrade that this planter has over what our 16-row planter had, right? The next one that I would consider to be the biggest upgrade as far as what I think is going to increase yield is the hydraulic downforce. So on our old planter, we were running active pneumatic downforce. And essentially what that means is that we had an airbag on every row that was pushing it down into the ground. So these blades, these openers, they take pressure to keep them into the ground to maintain depth. And when you pull it through the ground, it wants to ride up and ride on top of the ground and not in the soil. And so you use down pressure to keep those row units forced down into the ground. The old planter, it was an airbag. And every airbag was connected together. They all had a series of air lines between them, so they all had the same amount of pressure in it. But we did have sensors on the planter that would measure how much down pressure we needed and adjust that on the go, on the fly. There was an air compressor, it had air valves that would increase or decrease the pressure in there based on the soil conditions, how hard the ground was, how much down pressure we needed in order to keep that planter in the ground without having excess down pressure. That was good for the time. The problem with that system is, one, every row has the same pressure all the way across the planter, and two, it is very slow to react. So you could be driving across the field at 5 miles an hour with that planter, and it might take 100 feet for that air pressure to change and to adjust. Well, our soils can change a lot in 100 feet. And so what they've gone to is hydraulic downforce. So let me show you. So now, instead of an airbag on every row, we have a little hydraulic cylinder with its own actuator, right? So that's what this cylinder is right here. And we have hydraulic lines to it, and then there is a sensor on every row. It's located in this pin right here that's sensing how much weight is on the gauge wheels. So not only is hydraulics faster to respond, so it'll respond, I think it's 20 times a second that it can adjust the down pressure in that cylinder, it also has a reading on every row and can adjust each row independently. So I can have no down pressure needed on this row and 400 pounds on this row if necessary. That's unlikely, but it's possible. And so each row will react independently to the rows around it, to the other side of the planter, and put on exactly the amount of down pressure that that individual row needs. Much, much quicker and faster than what our air system would. And I have heard, we will see when we get to it this spring, but this will make a map, right? So it's gonna map how much down pressure is being applied on every single row, and as we're moving across the field. Now, I have heard of guys that are running a system like either this system or a competitor to this system where they can watch that map go, and say you've got a field where somebody drove across the rows with a sprayer, a tractor, a pickup, or whatever, and there's a couple of tire tracks that are a compacted area and that needs more down pressure to get in the ground there. I've heard that this system will react so fast that you can actually pick that up on the as-applied downforce maps in the cab of the tractor, where you'll be able to see that it applied more downforce where those tire tracks were in order to keep those units in the ground. That's incredible. Like if that works like that, that is just an amazing thing that is going to make sure that we have the proper amount of downforce on our planter. Now, why is downforce important? Well, like I said, downforce is what keeps our row units in the ground, right? And so the worst thing, I shouldn't say the worst thing, a really bad thing that can happen when you're planting is for this whole row unit to ride up, because what happens is your seed is no longer at the proper depth. And so what our down pressure does is make sure that our seed is planted at a proper, consistent depth. And if you mess that up, you don't get to fix it later. So that's why I really, really, really like this hydraulic downforce, and I think that's going to be a huge advantage to us. Next up on the list of major upgrades on this planter compared to the old planter, dual product fertilizer system. Now, I know there are guys specifically out west, not too many around here, but there are guys that run no starter fertilizer on their planter. I'm not in that camp, and our ground does not support that. We need, especially in the early cool soils, to have fertility available to those plants early, and we do that through starter fertilizer. So on the old corn planter, we were running 2x2 through John Deere single disc fertilizer openers. They worked fine. They're not a bad system. They're not a bad way to put fertilizer on, but it has its limitations, right? So I was running, I did different blends throughout the time that we had that planter. Last year, what I was putting on was some 1034O, some ATS, ammonium thiosulfate, because I really needed that sulfur that I can't put on later, and some zinc and some boron. So that's what we were running in my 2x2x2. It gets me the phosphorus that we need early season. Phosphorus can be tied up in cold, wet soils, and and it gave me the sulfur need that I needed throughout the year because I don't have another time to put that on. Zinc is very important to corn plants. Boron is a leachable nutrient that we need to be putting on. However, it's more needed late in the season than it is early in the season, and it can be toxic to seed. So planter starter is not the ideal place to put it. It just was the place that I had an opportunity to do it, kind of like the sulfur. So now this system, this gives me much, much more flexibility. So on this planter, we have two fertilizer systems, and we're going to talk about placement more in a few minutes, but I'm going to touch on what we're putting where right now. I'll touch on why later. Okay, so we're going to use an in-furrow. That's this nozzle right here, and it drops it down right here. So this is going to be in on top of the seed. The seed will already be in the ground. The trench will still be open, and we're going to dribble fertilizer right on top of it ahead of our closing wheels. Okay, what we're going to put in there, you want some of your micronutrients. You want, if you're going to do any biologicals, that kind of stuff there. I am not. And you want to have phosphorus, readily available phosphorus. But 1034O has a high salt content, so you can get away with some. You can't get away with a lot of 1034O in furrow. So I am using a product this year. It's a 721-3 MKP mono potassium phosphate, I think. And it's got some sugar in it, and it's got some other stuff that I think is going to be really good. So it's got a little bit of nitrogen, mostly phosphorus, a little bit of potassium. We're putting that right on the seed so that when those first seminal roots come out, the radical root comes out of that seed plant, it will immediately hit that fertilizer blend and be off to a rocket start right away. And that's a low use rate. We're going to run a 5 gallon per acre mix. I'm also going to throw in a carbon product. It's got some humic acid and amino acids and some of the carbon in it. So some of that is to feed microbes. Some of it is to keep fertilizer from tying up. And that's what the sugar does as well, is it kind of feeds our microbes in the soil. So that's what we're running in furrow. In my 2x2x2, which is another advantage, right? So that's going to replace basically what I was doing 2x2 on the old planter, except for we're putting it on both sides of the row, which allows those corn plant roots, corn's going to get it. If it's on one side of the road, corn's going to get it, but you're going to develop a much bigger root mass on one side than the other side. By splitting that, putting it on both sides of the row, it's going to make those roots grow both ways. That can help later in the season if we start getting dry weather or whatever. We'll have a bigger root mass there. Only good things come from bigger root masses, right? So, but we're not going to put it as deep with these conceal openers as what our 2x2 fertilizer openers on the deer planter did. And instead of running a bunch of phosphorus and everything that I was putting in through the 2x2 on the old planter, we're separating it out to my higher use leachable nutrients. Oh, one other thing we're doing in furrow is some zinc. I've got a zinc product that's being blended in with that 721-3. That's all pre-blended, but it's going in there as well. So 2x2x2. What I am using in my 2x2x2 fertilizer this year is a blend that I have kind of custom made, and what I want to provide there is nitrogen, sulfur, because I still can't put sulfur on later. I'm not side dressing with 28 or a liquid nitrogen. I'm side dressing with anhydrous. There's no way for me to add sulfur with the anhydrous ammonia, and so I have to put it on either with the planter or the sprayer, and it's easier for us to do it with the planter. Ideally, that would be spread out and go on with the nitrogen, but I don't have that capability. So nitrogen, sulfur. We're going to put a little bit of phosphate in there, and I'll explain that again in my reasons why we're putting fertilizer where we are later. And then I'm also going to put in more zinc in my 2x2 because I think that's an important thing. So we're going to use the exact blend is going to be 5 gallons of ATS, ammonium thiosulfate. It's going to be 6 3/4 basically of 28% liquid nitrogen. It's actually 28002, so we've got some sulfur in with that. And then we're going to run our quart of zinc, and we are going to run 3 gallons to the acre of 1034O polyphosphate. It's a high phosphorus fertilizer. I don't want that 1034O in furrow because of the salt content on it, but I don't know that I'm getting enough with the 721-3 to do what I need to do or what I'm trying to do, and it allows that plant to get it just a little bit later. So because we're not putting it as deep, but nitrogen and sulfur are leachable nutrients, they're going to move down through that soil profile. So putting it higher, letting them work their way down through the soil with rain and stuff later, puts it right into that root zone. That's not a bad thing. So I am not going to sit here and tell you that this corn planter is going to make our corn yield better, but I am going to tell you that I have a higher likelihood of doing what I'm trying to do with the yields and stuff because I am managing my fertility and my nutrients better than what I've been able to do in the past. So there's a lot of room for playing around with this stuff and different products and trying a lot of different things. We're going to do some of that, but that's where we're starting at for this year is with those products and trying to do that. So, okay, moving on from the liquid fertilizer. Another big change on this planter compared to the old one is up front here. We have row cleaners. On our old planter, we had a no-till coulter, basically a wavy blade that ran right in front of our seed discs. I never really no-tilled with it. I did think that it helped to break up clods and to create a nice loose dirt for us right ahead of the planter openers. However, what I did not like about them was that if it was at all wet, like just sticky, they would bring wet dirt up from underneath. That would then stick to the gauge wheels and cause depth issues, and I didn't like those. I think these row cleaners will do what I want to do with moving rocks and dirt clods out of the way. It's not about residue. I don't have corn stalk residue and a bunch of trash to move out of the way. I have dirt clods and rocks that I want to push out of the way and not let our openers hit. So I think those are going to work really well. That's going to be a learning curve for me. That's totally new. I've never run row cleaners before, so we will see. Outside of those things, there's not a ton different with the planter. We've got some differences in our fertilizer distribution system with the wet boom kits and how this works, and obviously the electric drive is totally different. The closing wheels you'll notice right now are the standard Deere rubber closing wheels. Those are coming off. I have cast copperhead furrow cruisers that we're putting on. I ran the poly or plastic copperhead furrow cruisers on the last planter, and I really liked those. I went with the cast this time just from a wear standpoint because I think that those plastic ones were wearing quite a bit after 2 years, and I intend to have this planter for more than 2 years, and so I went with the cast ones that should have a longer life. But other than that, there's not a ton operationally different and how the meters work and how all that stuff. I mean, that's huge differences. Don't get me wrong. That's a lot. But that covers that. Obviously, we don't have markers on this planter. I have GPS, and I get it. What happens when the satellites go down? Guys, that has happened to me for no more than 2 minutes in the last 5 years total. It doesn't happen. If it does, I'll figure it out. I will drive. It'll be okay. I'll have crooked rows. We'll deal with it. So we do have a lot more capability with the monitoring system. This is a SeedStar 4 monitor. I can run Connect Mobile. It's got an MGT, Modular Telematics Gateway, which apparently is what this thing is for, or wireless. I don't know. Something with communication stuff and being able to access maps and things on my iPad in the tractor cab, being able to view live maps and stuff as we're going, and we'll see all that stuff later, get it all set up, but there's a huge learning curve there. We are also going to run AutoPath with our Gen 4 display. We were going to do that on the corn planter last year, didn't get the harnesses and stuff that I needed in time, so we never got to do it, but we are going to run AutoPath with this planter. That's what that implement receiver mast up there is for that we put up there yesterday. So we'll put a GPS receiver on the planter. It will communicate with the one on the tractor to offer us a couple of things. One, it's going to make all our guidance lines for all subsequent passes throughout the year, namely the side dress pass and the combine pass, because those are what we're running Gen 4 monitors in, and you have to have that for AutoPath. So I get that question a lot as, well, what are you going to do with your side dress bar that's 16 rows and this is 24? I am hoping that my RTK guidance on the tractor and my AutoPath makes that a non-issue. We'll find out, but we're going to run it this year and see how things work. If the anhydrous bar disappears after this year, you guys will know why, but I don't anticipate that being an issue. The other thing that having an implement GPS receiver on the implement allows is for passive implement guidance, and what that means is the GPS and the computer will know where the planter is in relation to the tractor. So if we get on a side hill where the planter starts drifting down the hill, it will compensate and it will steer the tractor up the hill in order to keep the center of the planter exactly where it is supposed to be. So it's not an active system where it's actually physically steering tires in the back or a hitch that's moving over to offset it and keep it dead center perfect, but it should be better than what we're doing now. There are places where I have implement drift, and a planter will drift down the hill and my guest rows will get off, especially if we're going around curves and stuff. I assume, and I'm thinking, that the implement mast or implement receiver will also help on curve tracks and keeping that planter exactly where it needs to be. So I'm pretty excited about those components of it. Obviously, we've got the electric power generation side of this. All of these electric motors that run the seed meters and the brush belts are a 56 volt system, so they're kind of higher voltage for DC current on, I think it's DC current, I guess, on a implement or something like that. It is not a 12 volt system like most things are. So we'll figure all of that out as we go. There's some other cool things that electric planters, electric drives gives you that you don't get with a hydraulic drive planter or ground drive planter. One of those things is every individual row shutoff. So each row obviously you can turn an electric motor on and off very easily. So we don't need clutches or anything like that to do the row shutoffs like we had on the old planter. Plus it'll do turn compensation. So if I am planting around a curve, the outside of that planter, got the wing way out here, it's going fast, while the inside of that planter is going slow, right? And so with a planter that's planting, the meters are all turning the same speed, like a hydraulic drive or a ground drive, you're going to be way overpopulating the inside of that curve and way underpopulating the outside. Electric meters will all adjust. This meter will turn faster than that meter, which will turn faster than that one, so on all the way down the line to keep the population perfect all the way around a curve. Is that a huge thing? No, it's a really cool thing, and it will help in certain situations. I don't plant a ton of curves, but where we do, we'll be more consistent. And the fertilizer, I know the Deere fertilizer, I don't know about the Surefire fertilizer system, but the Deere, the pop-up one, will also compensate on turns so that it keeps the rate consistent all the way across. So anyway, that's why this planter, that's what I like about this planter. Those are the upgrades that I'm really, really excited about. Let's see, what else? Oh, let's talk about what we would change. That was a long clip, I'm sorry. You guys are getting a lot of me talking. What would we upgrade or change on this planter? Well, right now, nothing, other than we're going to put a tank on it so that I have both my fertilizer products on board and can plant without having to pull the tank behind me if necessary. But there are some things that I will consider and think about in the future. We're going to look at how this year goes, and we'll make some decisions after this year. But here are some of the things that I am thinking about. So we got that in-furrow fertilizer nozzle that's just spraying it, just dribbling it right here in the row, right? Well, there's a product called Furrow Force from Precision Planting that's got a little thing that actually splits that fertilizer, and it creates a wide band and puts it just off the side and kind of breaks the sidewall of the seed trench up a little bit. I really like the idea of that and the looks of that. So that's something that I will consider in the future. Let's see, what else? These row cleaners. I am really excited about these row cleaners. Right now, they are a manual pin adjust floating row cleaner. I have no air or hydraulic system to control them, to control the down pressure on them, the up and down, the height, anything like that. So if I have issues with those this year and they're a pain to adjust and get set right, we may consider an air adjust row cleaner option or something to upgrade those to give me some more adjustability from in the cab. Okay. That might be it. I don't know. I know there are different options with closing systems with some air down pressure there and stuff. I don't see the need for that right now. I'm excited about my copper heads that we're going to put on, but I don't know that we need to do anything more there really. So that's this planter. If you have any more specific questions or anything on why or what or how or any whatever, let me know. But I think I've gone through most of it. Now, the one thing that I do want to talk about yet, and we're probably too long of a video, they all have been lately, but whatever, is fertility placement, okay? So I talked about we're going to do the in-furrow and the 2x2x2, but why is that an advantage? And for me to do this, I really need to illustrate it. And the best way for me to illustrate it is to go down to my seed warehouse where I have a nice whiteboard and I can actually draw some of this stuff out for you. Yeah, so let's go do that. All right, y'all ready for this? I'm not an artist. Do not judge my drawing abilities. Okay, here's what we're starting with. We've got rows of corn, okay? Here's a row, here's a row, here's a row. Imagine these are 30 inches apart. You've got your corn plants every 7-ish, 6.5, 7 inches in each row. Okay, so fertility placement. So now we're gonna keep drawing here. Let's see if I can grab this black marker and hope that it works. All right, so let's say this is the surface of the ground. Oh, you can't see that very good. Hold on. All right, our ground is blue because the blue marker works better than the black marker. Okay, so we're gonna come through with a corn plant and we're gonna make a V. About like that, right? Okay, that's what our furrow, where we're gonna plant our seed, is gonna look like. So we're gonna put a seed right there, okay? So now what the starter system on my planter is designed to do is give me, let's try the red marker, see if the red works for fertilizer, is gonna give me, actually let's wait, let's hold on. All right, so go back up here. Imagine ground level. What does the root system of that corn plant look like, right? Well, we've got the seminal roots that come down off of the seed, and then we have the nodal roots that come down, the ones you see above the ground called brace roots. Essentially though, all of your roots are right here, let me zoom out, in a little pocket around the seed. And if you were to take say a flower pot that's like 10 inches in diameter and draw it like that, that's going to encapsulate most of the root zone. You're going to have another one over here. Then you may get a few roots that branch out here into the middle, but by and large, the vast majority of them are in this area within 10 inches of that, or within 5 inches either side of the plant, maybe 12, or maybe, go 6, whatever. That's where all of the plant roots are. That's where the vast majority of them are, and I would even be willing to say that most of them are in the top 3 to 4 inches. And you're getting some down below that, but not near as much. But that's what our root system is going to look like, okay? So now let's go back to our seed. So we've got our trench here, we've got our seed. We're going to put a band of fertilizer right here. So we're going to have a zone right around that seed, and that is our in-furrow pop-up. That's the stuff that these first roots coming out are going to hit immediately, okay? Now with our 2x2, we're putting a band kind of down here. Gonna get there pretty quick. Those first roots are gonna get there, but they're not gonna get it immediately when they start to grow. It's gonna take 3 or 4 days for those roots to get to that. And this is like what we did with the old planter, where we're 2 inches off to the side of it, say, and we're just a little bit deeper, and we're putting all of our nutrients there. We're gonna not do that this year. We are eliminating that placement, okay? We're gonna put fertilizer here and here. Well, that's above the seed. What good does that do? Well, remember what we're putting there. We're putting nitrogen, sulfur, zinc, all things that are somewhat leachable and mobile, and they are going to go down right to where these roots are growing, and right where all of these roots are going to come out of that plant later, okay? So we've got our corn plant, it's growing up, it's getting tall, throws a tassel. Now we've got all these brace roots, and they're coming right down through those bands, right down through them. And so we're putting that nutrients there, not because I'm trying to feed it at tassel, but because I'm trying to feed it at V4, V5. When those first nodal roots are coming down, some of those first ones actually come out right at the ground level, and they're gonna go right through that, okay? That is good. That's why I like this placement better, because we're going to get even root mass on both sides. We're going to give it something right at the very, very beginning, and we're gonna keep feeding that plant. Now, let me go back to, okay, so we've got our flower pot here. Where are we putting all of our dry nutrients? So what we do on our farm is we broadcast a lot of dry fertilizer in the fall. Dry fertilizer is much, much cheaper than the liquids that we're putting on here, usually. I mean, they are, but they're still all expensive. But we're broadcast spreading potash, which is our potassium chloride, and we're broadcasting MAP, monoammonium phosphate, and some ammonium sulfate, which gives us some nitrogen and sulfur. But we're not banding it, we're broadcasting it. That means our fertility speckled throughout that entire profile, right? We're in between these rows. We're not just in that flower pot. That's not real efficient. There are 2 million pounds of soil in an acre slice, 6 inches deep, 1 acre, 2 million pounds. We're putting on, you know, maybe 100 pounds, maybe 200 pounds of these fertilizers in there, and the plant has to go and find it. And it has to search 2 million pounds of soil to find that. What are the chances of finding this stuff that's way over here? Not great. Not great. So, here's where I take this to the next level and why I keep talking to you guys about something that I want to try. Let's eliminate all these speckles that we just made and not broadcast our fertilizer. What can we do instead of broadcasting it? Spreading it throughout the whole soil profile. Band it. How do we band it? Well, we strip till. So what if, instead of broadcasting P and K all throughout the soil profile, we put them in a band 6 inches deep right underneath that root? And we provide the bulk of that nutrients right there. And we let these roots grow. And they get down there and they get branches and they get branches and they grow right into it. That is what strip till would do for me. That's why I want to try strip till. It's not so much the reduced tillage between the rows, which would help, and there's other advantages and stuff. It is a nutrient placement thing. Our corn roots are only going to go so far. We've got to feed them where they are. And so that's why I like this in-furrow fertilizer placement that we have not been able to do. That's why I like the 2x2 on both sides of the row. And what nutrients go where is important. We don't want to put nitrogen down here. Nitrogen doesn't go up in the soil. It moves down. If we get rain through there, it's going to flush nitrogen down. That's not where you put it. But you can put P there because phosphorus doesn't move in the soil. You can put K there because potassium is relatively stable in the soil. It's not going to move out, although contrary to the guy told me at the meeting this morning, he said that potassium is leachable nutrient, and I disagree to an extent. Depends on your soils, right? We don't run 6 CEC soils. We're in heavier soils that are a lot of 15 to 18 CECs. Our nutrients aren't going anywhere. They're going to sit right there. So that's what I would really like to do, is get to the point where I can go through in the fall. I just put the marker caps back on. But we can have our flower pot here, and I can place nutrients right here that are just going to sit there and hang out until the corn planter comes. We're going to come in with our corn planter. We're going to plant our seed right there. We're going to put a band of fertilizer on each side of the row that we're going to let sink down into the root zone. We're going to put enough fertilizer on right there to get that seed off to a great start, and we're going to let it go. Now the next step to this beyond the strip till component is, once we've got our plant, now we've got to add some nitrogen. How do I add nitrogen? Well, the way I do it is to come over here and I put on anhydrous. Now my anhydrous is a gas that is going to permeate through that soil, and it's going to get to that root zone. It's going to move through the pore space and bind with the water all over there. Right? And I'm doing it with a coulter opener that's only putting it 4 or 5 inches deep rather than a knife opener that's putting it 6 to 8 inches deep. I like this better, as long as we can hold it and keep it in the soil. But I still don't like the fact that it's in the middle of the row. Now the roots are going to get it. Obviously it's working. What we're doing is working. But what if, instead of this, we Y dropped it? We put that nitrogen right here, right on the stalk on both sides of the row. We know it's a noble nutrient. It's going to move down as long as we have some water. That's the big if. Is it going to rain in July? Is it going to rain in late June when we're Y dropping that to get it down into the soil? I don't know. But then all of it is going into the flower pot and not in between the rows. I don't know. There's your agronomic lesson for the day. That got way more in depth in my channel than I usually do, but it's still a pretty high level overview of nutrient placement and stuff. But this is the thought process that I have in my head, and as I'm trying to push the yields, is how do I get my nutrients, one, where they need to be, and two, what nutrients do I need? So obviously soil applied stuff in the bulk quantities, the commodity fertilizers per pound of nutrient, they're cheaper generally. The question becomes availability. The guy I talked to this morning will have you believe that potassium, or the potash, is only 10 to 20% available to that plant in the first year. That very well could be true, but we're applying it regularly, so I always have some coming available. The microbes in your soil are kind of what break that stuff down and make them nutrients available to the plants, and that is important that they're plant available. But regardless, you're going to supply most of your fertility needs with things like potash or MAP or DAP on the phosphorus side, or the 1034O that we're using for starter phosphorus, or those kinds of things. And so there's kind of a handoff here between all of those, but then we can also supply some foliarly. That's where a company like Ag Explorer here comes into play, where we can spray what that crop needs at the exact time that it needs it, or right ahead of when it needs it, whether that's a boron, a zinc, maybe sulfur, a manganese, a potassium product, a phosphorus product, whatever it is. We can put it there when the plant needs it and kind of give it that next kick. And those are smaller quantities. They cost a little bit more, but maybe it's more efficient than, putting a potassium down here that's 20% available, and it still costs a lot of money to, we spray a half a gallon to the acre on the plant, get it right into the leaf tissue, and it's all being used. It's more like 90 to 100% available. Yeah, there's some value there. So I'm still playing with it and experimenting with it and trying all of this stuff. I don't have it figured out. I do not have it figured out, but I'm learning, and I'm teaching apparently. So if any of you think that I'm full of it, you can feel free to call me out. Agronomist Wade, I'm assuming you're watching. Tell me what I got wrong here. Help me out, whatever. And yeah, I'm going to go back and work on a planter for a while. So you guys, thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. This is one of the things that humble brag here, right? This is one of the things that sets me apart. Not that other YouTubers don't know this stuff. They just know that nobody wants to watch it. I don't. I'm not that smart. So I tell it to you anyway. And, it is different content than what you see elsewhere. People don't talk about the fertility and the management side of stuff like I do. It's fun. I geek out on it. I enjoy it. So subscribe to the channel if you enjoy it. Even if you just enjoy watching fun tractors, 8RXs, high-speed planters. I have that too, so you can watch that. And I'm going to go make sure that high-speed planter is ready to go. We're getting a little rain. It's warm right now, but it's going to be cold by tomorrow afternoon and Friday. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Thursday? No, today's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. Saturday it's supposed to be really cold. I don't know if I'm going to make a video tomorrow or not. I've got some stuff going on that might keep me tied up all day. So if I don't, I will see you on Monday. If I do, I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. See you guys tomorrow. I'm so bad at this. I'm so bad at this wrapping it up thing. Like, I just told you all the things you need to know. Goodbye. Have a great weekend, everybody.